What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel. Check out the content. With that being said, man, I want to talk about a story that a former guy by the name of Eddie Johnson. Or was it Eddie Jones? Eddie Jones. I'm sorry, Eddie Jones used to play in the league like when Michael Jordan played in the league, and he was telling about a story when Michael Jordan had made a bet with Dan Marley, and Dan Marley lost the bet, and basically they were gambling, and once Dan Marley lost the bet, Mike said he was going to give him 40 the next game, and so they went off. Mike went off on him. Now I had the video queued up, but I'm not sure if I can. The video I just noticed had music to it, so what I'm gonna have to do with this video is go ahead and narrate it, because I'm not sure if I can play the video with the music playing in the background because it might be copyrighted or something like that. But so and this the guy that was the guy right there who's telling the story, Eddie Johnson, and he said basically he had hung out. Michael Jordan hung out with Dan Marley, Eddie Johnson, and Tom Chambers, right? And they was gambling, and so now, what happened was they beat Mike gambling, or at least Dan Marley did. So Mike got mad, and Mike told he said that, man, I'm gonna give your boy 40 tomorrow when they play Phoenix because they had been hanging out late that night gambling, right? And so Dan Marley and Eddie Johnson took the bet. They was like, man, he bet them $400. He said, I bet y'all $400 that I give your boy Dan Marley 40 points tomorrow. And they was like, man, you're not gonna do that. So Mike said, all right, he took the bet. And so they said Mike was close. He had like 38 points, and he looked over to them and he gave them the four sign, holding up. And everybody knew, all those guys knew that meant that Mike was going, he wanted his $400. And so he said for his 40th point, Mike took the ball, came down the court and dunked on everybody, and then ran down, giving everybody the four sign again. And he went over to the coach. I think the guy name was Cotton Fitzsimmons. And he said, yeah, man, your boy owed me $400. They hung out with me last night. Mike had snitched on, they hung out with me last night, and I bet them I was gonna get them 40. And so the coach was mad at them, for hanging out. But that's the kind of thing, that Mike used to do all the time. Like Mike used to hang out with Charles Barkley. Him and Charles Barkley, when Charles Barkley played for Phoenix, he'd hang out with Charles Barkley and make sure Charles Barkley was up late at night and couldn't get enough rest. And then he'd show up. Mike would show up the next day and would kill these guys, because they couldn't. For some reason, Mike was able to perform the next day, and these guys wasn't. So Mike did this to a lot of guys. He'll hang out mostly gambling, drinking and gambling, and then he would get you the next day knowing that you wasn't sharp and you needed to be sharp to go up against Mike, or Mike will kill you. Mike just, he played mind games and used these type of tactics against these guys, man. And it was I think it's funny. A lot of these guys fell for it. I remember Baron Davis, man, said that he coming into a game, he didn't hang out with Mike, but he said coming into a game, before the game started, Mike said, "Oh man, what's that cologne you got on?" And I don't know what the cologne that Baron said, but Baron Davis said he was so caught up in that Mike noticed this cologne and that Mike was said something to him about it. He just forgot all about playing. He let his guard down. He forgot all about playing defense against Mike. And then once they got out on the court, Mike was just giving them that work. The coach had to call timeout, and he was like, "Hey, is anybody out there going to play that guy, man? What are y'all doing, man?" And yeah, Baron Davis said that was a funny story that he had about Michael Jordan. But you hear a lot of people saying that about how Mike was just, like he was a cool dude. He was a nice guy. And then, he'll get you to let your guard down, get you on that court, and just destroy you. What's the guy who used to play for the Knicks? Um, Houston, Byron. I think his name. What was his name? I forgot what his name was. It wasn't Byron Houston, but it was it was something Houston. Anyway, the guy used to play for the Knicks, man. He said the same thing, man. Mike, he dapping you up and hugging you and all these niceties, and then once the game start, Mike is out for blood, and um I don't know, like Mike was able to he was one of those people. I guess he some people can operate and still function on very little sleep. And I think that's what Michael Jordan was. He was one of those kind of people that could function on very little sleep. What's the coach? The coach from the Wizards when Mike was there, Doug Collins. He said that Michael Jordan had a bad game one time for the Wizards, and he only scored like 8 points. And Michael Jordan had hung out the night before, not before that game, but after that, Michael Jordan had hung out, you know, um, and he said Michael Jordan still, even though he hung out and was drinking with the fellas and was smoking cigars and stuff, Michael Jordan still was in the gym before everybody that next morning. Mike was out to like 3 or 4 in the morning, gambling, smoking cigars, but like before everybody else got to the gym, Mike had already been there and started his workout. So, like I said, you got some people who can do that, who can operate and function at a high level with only a little bit of sleep. And most people can't do that. I know for a fact I can't do that. If I don't get enough sleep or if I don't get enough rest, I'm not effective at all. And that, I'm not focused. I don't have that energy. But some people I'm trying to think of who else might be able to do something like that. But Mike is notorious for being able to function, after hanging out late nights and he'll get Charles Barkley and Dan Marley and all those guys to hang out. And then, knowing that they can't do the same things he do and just wear these guys out on the corner, man. That's just on the court. I just think that that's just so funny when you have a dude like Michael Jordan who can push it like that and still going to be the first man in the gym, like the first guy at the workout, work harder than everybody else, not just as hard. He going and still going to work harder than everybody else, and he's going to push his teammates. So and if you can't be effective, I guess if you're on his team and you can't be effective, no way you was going to be able to hang out with Mike. Mike probably wouldn't even allow you to hang out with him. He probably would send his teammates home, because he want the best out of them, that next morning, but he did that not to his teammates, but he did that to other people, to his opponents and stuff like that. He allowed them dudes to hang out with him. And, yeah, a lot of people say that Mike is a degenerate gambler too. Mike just loved to gamble, and that's just crazy. Like I say, just the average person wouldn't be able to do this. No way that you're going to be able to function at a high level once you are, on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Wow, man. I mean, sometimes if I get a if I get a full night's sleep, I still need to take a nap, you know? And yeah, man, I like to hear these stories though about Michael Jordan and about how he was able to push himself and still be effective even when he was operating on little to no rest. Especially, the story I heard about him like hanging out late one night, smoking cigars and stuff like that, and drinking, and then going to go into the weight room and work out. Nah, that couldn't have been me. It couldn't have been most people. Like I said, most people they need at least to 7 hours sleep. Some people even need more than that, but 6 to 7 hours of sleep is what most people need. But I thought that was a good story by this guy right here, Eddie Johnson. Eddie Johnson was a defensive specialist too back in the day. He was known for locking people down. He was Bruce Bowen before Bruce Bowen. He was Kawhi Leonard before Kawhi Leonard. He was Tony Allen before Tony Allen. This dude, right here on the screen, this dude, he was shutting people down. And so that's what his claim to fame was. And so, yeah, man. With that being said, man, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I will definitely check you all out on the next video. Peace.